Hello, guys. Welcome back to the Braxcast. This is the 65th episode of the Braxcast, and we've got some pretty exciting stuff to talk about. Of course, there was a massive announcement I talked about last week. I didn't know what it was at the time, but now we do. It is the Saints and Sinners. It is the first anthology of the Rippaverse. But before we get into that, I want to talk about some cool collaborations, along with highlighting the fact that Zalen, What Kills Must Die has begun fulfillment. That began on the 15th. So if you ordered that early and you didn't order it with anything else, you should be getting those shipping notifications pretty soon. I did, so expect a review for Zalen on Sunday. I'll be posting this on Saturday, so tomorrow I should get my copy of Zalen and I'll get that review out for you guys. But really exciting time for the Rippaverse. Of course, we've got some pretty cool collaborations in the pipeline along with Saints and Sinners, so don't want to bury the lead. We do have Zachary Levi, who plays Shazam in Shazam. He was talking about the Rippaverse positively and collaborating in the future, although it does seem to be a charity event and not like he's going to be acting in a movie or anything like that. But there is a collaboration between him and the Rippaverse that seems like something that's going to happen. It's going to be a charity event. And of course, that doesn't preclude when Rippaverse Studios starts getting into animations and doing stuff like that, that Zachary Levi won't be at the top of the casting list. This is something I talked about on the most recent episode of Braxcast Live, which was fantastic as always. That it's really cool to see Zachary Levi knowing about the Rippaverse, speaking of the Rippaverse positively, and of course, leaving the door open to collaborations. But with something that is confirmed, I think is really cool. This is from Pal Rodrix. This is, of course, the fan art piece of a medieval item. And this doesn't have anything to do with what Pal Rodrix is working on. So Pal Rodrix is working on the Rippaverse, working with the Rippaverse in some capacity on some unannounced art. We don't know what that is, but of course, Pal Rodrix is the main artist for Genuine Comics, Perfect 10. I've reviewed Perfect 10. This is another thing I mentioned on live stream, and he does fantastic work. So I am really, really happy to see Pal getting some work with the Rippaverse, and hopefully it's some interior art, and hopefully he has an ongoing relationship with the Rippaverse, because his art is just fantastic. It's probably some of the best art you'll see in independent comics comes from Pal's hands, and it's really cool to see Pal working with the Rippaverse in a capacity like that. And this is a really cool fan art piece, medieval item, although I think this would be a fun, like, non-canonical, maybe short story to throw. It's like, hey, this isn't canon, this is just a really fun thing to do. But it'd be cool to have a young item series, and I think Pal would be a fantastic artist to bring a young item series to life. But definitely wanted to mention those collaborations before we get into the main topic of today, and that is the Saints and Sinners of the Rippaverse. So, of course, we've got this is all a printout of all the stories. There are 6 main stories, so you can't necessarily see the text, but I'm going to read out what the 6 stories are, and basically their short little log line and who works on them. This is a 112-page anthology, so each short story is around 15 pages. So the first one is Chasing Ghosts. Alpha Core's Ingrid Valdez strikes out solo to face the emotional and moral fallout of Wilkins' tragedy in a story packed with grit, heart, and personal reckoning. This is written by Heels vs. Babyface, or Az, with the interior art from Diogenes Neves, and inked by Eber Ferrara, with Andrew Kramer as the colorist, and the letterer for all of these stories is done by Invisible Art Studios, and this is one I commentated on quite a bit. I'm really interested in this one. Alpha Core number 2 is my most anticipated book, so to have a short story that focuses solely on Ingrid, which is definitely what I saw a good bit of the community want, is a solo Ingrid story. So we're getting a solo Ingrid story, and it's taking place in between Alpha Core 1 and Alpha Core 2. So it's going to be really interesting to see what Az does, and hopefully some of the plot points that, or I should say themes that Az mentions, is stuff that we'll see in Alpha Core 2. But next up, we're going for A Cross to Bear. Cameron Cross is partnered with Mick Davies in a heavy tension-filled mission that tests their beliefs and reveals what the cost of living with emotional emotional scars, excuse me. Really cool to see this one. This is, of course, written by J. David with the art from Chris Bolson, and colors is from Gilly Herme, Lindenberg Mendez, if I'm saying that correctly. J. David, of course, showed up to my live stream yesterday, so shout out to him. Of course, he's written Achromatic Chronicles, which was the first Rippaverse Ripascend project, excuse me. So I definitely like his writing style. This is going to be a really interesting one, and taking a character that we know about, McDavies, very vaguely has a very short appearance in Isom 1. And of course, I believe a very short appearance in Horseman at Welcome to Forest Park. And I think Alpha Core #1 as well. He's mentioned just a little bit. So we don't know that much about him. Like, he's a character that's very much a side character. So to have one that focuses on him, even if it is a short story, it's going to be really interesting. And I believe this is a 15-pager. That's what Jay was talking about in live stream. So next up, we got The Weight of Restraint. Hard choices are made that shape men into what they are meant to be. This is written by Eric July, with art by Elias Martin and colors from Diego Albuquerque. Really cool to see Eric writing another story. Of course, writing is his main creative, gig, other than, making the music, but of course that entails writing as well. So really interesting to see him do something that isn't Isom. Of course, we have Salvage and Sersha. Those are two non-Isom projects, or comics, I should say, that he's worked on. So this is his third short story that he's written for the Rippaverse. So it's going to be pretty interesting to see exactly what that entails. Bone God is a violent, chaotic thrill ride that introduces all new characters destined to shake up the Rippaverse, with this being written by Calum Edmonds with art by Will Conrad, who of course did the art for Gooding the Polymath and the Dokumon cards, so it's going to look fantastic, and Bruno Hang is coloring the book. So don't know much about that, much about Bone God more than that, but it will be really interesting to see what this is. Now, other than Chasing Ghosts, the Underdog is what I am really most excited for, is this story. This is going to cover the SSWL, as Larry Shungite steps into the spotlight with a long-awaited origin story that digs deep into his roots and reshapes what fans thought they knew. This is written by the Saskas, with Cliff Richards doing the art and Marco Palandra doing the color. So it's really cool to see Cliff drawing something that isn't Isom for the Rippaverse. So that's going to be exciting. And of course, the Saskas, I think they are really good at writing. I love Bloodroof. Of course, Yaira is my favorite book. Really exciting to see what they're going to do with the character of Larry Shungite. And of course, we'll get into this, but I believe Tuna is in this as well. So it's just going to be really interesting to see about the origins of the SSWL. Of course, we know about the SSWL from the Isom series. It's first alluded to in Isom #1 at the end, when Cedric Gaucho mentions that he worked for SSWL. And then in Isom #2, of course, that is the first appearance of Larry Shungite. We have this very short, introduction of Larry Shungite entering the ring, and then it's revealed that Lincoln was watching that on TV, and then he goes off, does something else. But that is really all we know about the SSWL that exists. Larry Shungite's a part of it, and Larry Shungite's basically the star, but he's having a bit of a falling out with the SSWL. So learning about his origins and maybe getting a bit of a tease as to why Larry Shungite might have a falling out with the SSWL is going to be really interesting. And of course, it's going to be really interesting to see a younger Tuna utilized as a character as well. Last of these stories is One Little Push. A mysterious figure walks the boundary between life and death in a haunting tale that blends eerie mysticism with familiar and new faces alike. So this is an interesting one. So it implies that we'll see characters that we know going to be met with characters that we don't. This is written by Will Jordan, who I believe is Critical Drinker. I could be wrong on that, with the interior art by Carlos Reno and Marco Lesko doing the colors. So I'm sure it's going to be fantastic from an art perspective, but that's an overview of the 6 short stories. Of course, I've got so much to print out, so I didn't print out all of the preview art. So you can go to Rippaverse.com, check out the collection page, and see all the preview for this. But this is the one that I just figured I would highlight. All of this looks fantastic. We've got, if I can zoom in just a little bit here, we've got, I'm not sure if you can see it, but this does say Big Tuna. So this implies that Tuna is going to be focused on the SSWL. And if you know about his character page on the Rippaverse website, we know that Tuna had a history with the SSWL. He was a former fighter, so this makes perfect sense for him to be the guy that Larry Shungite has to take down in order to get that top spot. So it's going to be really, really cool to see. This is, of course, drawn by Cliff Richards. You can really tell that it's his style. Of course, I really vibe with it. Some people don't. It's perfectly okay. We've got, let's see, we'll zoom out again. We've got some art from Chasing Ghosts. Absolutely love this design for Ingrid. She's got the helmet. She's got her bike. It's all green. Looks really, really cool. We got another preview page for Chasing Ghosts, and then here is another preview page for the story of the Underdog, excuse me, with art done by Cliff Richards. And then, of course, the art for Chasing Ghosts is done by Diogenes Neves and Eber Ferreira, if I'm saying that correctly. But yeah, I don't have enough printer ink to show all of the preview pages, but it's really, really cool that they are working with a really fantastic team of artists and writers. Some, of course, veterans like Cliff Richards and Will Conrad, of course, with some new guys like Heels versus Babyface. So it's going to be really, really cool to see how all of this melts together and what all these stories really do for the lore of the Rippaverse. But I think Chasing Ghosts and the Underdog are going to be the ones that give us the biggest insight into Rippaverse, because the SSWL is, of course, something that we know not too much about, but it does seem like it's going to be important going forward for the Rippaverse. And of course, like I said, Chasing Ghosts is going to take place in between Alpha Core 1 and Alpha Core number 2. So we're going to get some pretty good insight into the dynamics of the Alpha Core, especially how the events of the Alpha Core, how the events that are going to take place in Alpha Core 1 and 2 are going to link up with what happens in Yaira, more specifically the end of Yaira number 1 and Yaira number 2. But that is really the gabbing about the art. So talking about the milestones. So this, I guess, collection has milestones, and the ones I think we're probably going to hit the 250, considering this is last time I checked, it hit the over 150K and less than 1,000 books to get to that 5,000 books sold, which is where we'll get a hardcover added. 250 is a concept art book with designs from Marcos Rios. 350 will be cover reveals for Norfolk A Glorious Death, The Black Guide Club, and The Curse, which really, I think, tells us that these books are going to come out sooner rather than later, so it's going to be really exciting to see. And then $500,000 is going to be a new title announcement, revealing the next major Rippaverse project, a brand new title, a brand new story, be the first to hear what's coming next. So hopefully we hit that 500,000, but regardless, if we don't, we'll still find out about it. It'll just be a little bit later. So if you're interested in any of these milestones, be sure to go to rippaverse.com and go to the Saints and Sinners collection page and order within the window. It's about 70 days or so. We've got, I think it's about a 70 day collection. So we got, a little over 60 days if you're watching this the day that I upload it. But to finish off the discussion of Saints and Sinners, we were going to go cover all the covers. So this is cover A. This is focusing on Chasing Ghosts, of course. And Andrew told me when I was talking to him on the live stream yesterday, it's Friday, that the 4 covers are meant to highlight the stories from the 4 new writers, which is really interesting. So this is by Janine's Holland, who does the cover, and all but one of these covers is colored by Marcos Martin, I believe, if I'm getting the correct Marcos right. But this is an absolutely fantastic cover of Ingrid. It looks like she's having like a spiritual, I don't know, like her soul is getting ripped from her body. It looks really, really wicked. Absolutely love the art. Here's probably one of the best covers for Saints and Sinners. Next, we've got Will Conrad's cover for, not sure, this might be Bone God. I'm not exactly sure which one it is, but this is a really cool looking cover. Absolutely do love the style here. And then again, I think this is meant to highlight one of the new stories from the new writers. Next, we've got the C cover here. Is most likely the cover, that story that's focusing on I'm not sure. I think not sure it's restraint, but you see we've got Yaira Altona here in the scope of a sniper. Absolutely love the aesthetic of this one. This one does not seem to be foiled or embossed. It could be though. See, covers typically are like that. We don't have a retro cover since this is a little bit different. These covers are meant to highlight the specific stories or all the characters themselves, so we don't have a retro cover. Unfortunately, it'd be really cool, but this is by Desmond White, who does this cover. Did an absolutely fantastic job. I love the style of it, and the fact that we see Yaira, or I should say Sally Rodell, and Altona really gives us a hint about who's going to be featured in that story. So this one's going to be really, really interesting to see. This is why getting this anthology is going to be really fun to see. Next, we've got this cover. This is, of course, Across the Bear. This is what this is focusing on. I talked about this quite a bit. Absolutely love the aesthetic. I'm not sure if you can see it too well on the printed page, but he's wearing a cross. It looks kind of like a rosary. You've got, of course, that cross there, and he does look like he has a priest's collar, so a decent chance he is a military chaplain. Of course, you've got like the flaming cross and everything burning on there, and the tank that's actively firing. So this does give off that war zone vibe. Absolutely love to see this cover. A fantastic cover drawn by Edu Souza and with the colors by Jesse Higi, if I'm saying that correctly. Last but definitely not least is the e-cover. This is done by Kanan White, who's a fantastic artist. Of course, the lead art editor over at the Rippaverse, does fantastic work. And this is really the compilation cover. So this is one that's focusing on all of the characters. We see Ingrid, we see Larry Shungai, we see the other characters from the other stories. Especially, we got that sniper that most likely appears in the cover as well. So this is a really good one, and this is of course a mass print cover, so this is the one that's going to be available in perpetuity. Definitely think that's the way and one ought to be. The other ones are more limited they're going to be limited prints, so they're going to be much more collectible. We don't know if there's going to be a signed series like graded slabs. That might be a cool thing to do, to have the four covers, the four writers that those ones focus on. Would be a cool thing to do, but it's probably a bit of a logistical nightmare to get them all out to the warehouse and sign them, so that might not be a thing that happens, but you can still buy all 5 covers. Of course, the collection is still ongoing, so we're going to see how that all pans out. And of course, we got the milestones as well, and this is going to fulfill late Q3, so the collection, I should say, ends on the 18th of July, if I'm getting my dates correct, and then it should be fulfilling late Q3, which I believe is around the end of September. If I'm getting my dates for quarters correct. But regardless, that's really all the coverage I have for Saints and Sinners. So a lot of cool stuff going on at the Rippaverse. It's really, really cool to see them doing an anthology series. This is, of course, something that I have mentioned plenty of times. Not plenty of times, but a few times I've mentioned that an anthology series would be really cool. So it's going to be really cool to see if hopefully this keeps on as an ongoing series, how, who they bring on, and for writers and artists, and the things that they can experiment with and really try out when you have a lot less risk in terms of if one of these stories doesn't land, then the other 5 can help carry it. Whereas, if something like Zalin isn't something that people respond to, not saying that people don't like Zalin, then you've got the entire book is a failure. Whereas, if it's one story in an anthology that people say, and it's like, doesn't really hit, then it's not too much skin off the game, or not too much skin off the back, or you want to use however you want to use the saying. So it's really, really cool to have an anthology series. Hopefully they do this as an ongoing series, so they can really experiment and really build out the lore in cool ways. But that's really all I have to commentate on about Saints and Sinners for now, until I get the book in my hands and I can review it and really sink my teeth into it. But like I said, nothing else to talk about. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this episode. Joker is out. Thank you for tuning in to the Braxcast. Be sure to like, comment, follow, and subscribe to keep up with the Rippaverse.